Well, thank you all. Hey, Denny Grimes coming to you with master level scripts and role plays from Southwest Florida, Naples, Fort Myers. This is my weekly call, 1 to 2 o'clock Eastern time, and we're going to be talking about mastery level role play with some situations that a lot of agents are dealing with. Okay, so really quick, you can see, I trust you can see the screen behind me. Kind of my method, as you know, if you've been on this call before, is this is my thing is I love to basically be question-based, listing enhanced conversational scripts, because the key, I mean, obviously we want great relationships with our clients and we want to be able to have some sort of insight into their thinking, insight into their emotions, build a relationship. And the key to that is going to be asking not only questions, but strategic questions. So let's start today with the thought of the day. Now, I got a lot of regulars here. Might be some new people popping in or maybe on the Facebook Live. And if it hasn't been stated already, if you haven't been paying attention, the market is pretty crazy right now. In fact, as you know, you've heard me call this the greatest of all times, the GOAT market. With nearly 40 years, I've never seen a market like this. Now, we said that 5 months ago, 6 months ago. In fact, tracking the numbers in Southwest Florida, it's probably true for my Miami friends. It may be true for wherever you are. We have had record-setting months when you compare the month over month. They call it year over year comparison, August to August, September to September, etc. We've had 9 record-setting months in a row. And it's like the Bucks won 8 games in a row and won a Super Bowl, and sooner or later they're going to lose a game. You guys, I want you to write this down, because this is a great nugget for you to get your head around, because people are wondering, is it going to lead to another bubble? Is it going to last? Here's the thing that I can tell you after having been through the bubble back in 2006 to 9, right? The demand we have right now is real. Is it sustainable? No. For those that have been in real estate back when the bubble hit, and basically in the real estate bubble, 2003, 4, 5, crazy sales, crazy lending practices. People were buying spec homes and condos yet to be built, and they were speculating. Now, the difference in today's market versus that market, back then the demand was not real and it was not sustainable. People buying houses today are buying them really to use. They're not buying them for investment, to flip, this, that, and the other. So that's going to be a very healthy thing for our market when it corrects. However, what I'm seeing and surprised so far is that it seems to be picking up speed. And that's going to lead, and it is leading to certain challenges out there. So my thought of the day is this. What type of market are we in? In other words, we're talking in terms of a seller's market, buyer's market, maybe an equilibrium market. So just generally stated, and I might have said this last time, I'm not really sure, is that another way to look at this is who has the power? Well, right now in the marketplace right now, you guys would basically say the sellers have the power. They are superhuman. They basically have the superpower. However, they only have that power until they go under contract. And once they go under contract, the buyers have all the power. Now, that's kind of a sobering thought when you think, I mean, to have the superhuman strength all the way up until the time you ink the contract, now all the power has been negated and the buyers are controlling the transaction. So that means that we have to advise our clients, or seller clients, in order to make sure they pick the right and select the best offer for them. And we have the responsibility to help our buyer clients basically look the best in a multiple offer situation, so they actually end up being able to own or control the home. Because with a multiple offer, generally speaking, what happens is that many times agents and sellers focus on price and not the probability of closing. So number one is, I want you basically as professional agents, and we're counseling our sellers, is the probability of a closing is sometimes equally or more important than the price, because a buyer could offer twice the asking price. And many times people are getting close to that right now, right? And yet if it doesn't close, it does not mean anything. And there's some crazy things are happening. We all have stories. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. So if number one is the probability of closing. So I've kind of put together a little checklist. In fact, I did my TV spot on this on Friday. It took 2.5 minutes. So you can go to my Facebook page and you can get this. Probably will be posted on, in fact, it will be posted on Denny Grimes Mastermind on YouTube. Is number one. I've learned basically when a seller is focused on multiple offers, one of the first things that you should be asking, and this is not normal standard of practice in a normal real estate transaction. However, it's very important today. Find out if the buyers have physically been in the home. Now, how can you do that? Well, when you look at showing time or whatever you have, showing desk, you might be able to figure it out. However, don't assume, because agent A may have shown the home to more than one buyer, and the buyer that they submitted the offer with has not been through the home. Now, I just give more weight, and you can pop in there and speak up because we got a small crowd today. If you want to, you can put it in the chat. Sonny will read it. I give more weight to the offers where the buyers have been in the home, because the buyers are getting smart. What they're doing is they're actually putting in options on homes. They're actually throwing an offer in. It doesn't really matter what it is to lock it up. Because remember, the power shifts from the sellers to the buyer. Now the buyer has a contingency period. And you know what? As long as there's a contingency, it is a get out of jail free card all the way up until the last day of the longest contingency. And so too many times I've heard, maybe you've seen it too, where the buyer comes down and for whatever reason, and they never say subject to, this would be too obvious. Well, I want to see the house first. We'd probably turn them down. They say, well, I just want to be able to inspect it. Believe me, I'm going to go through with it. I've heard all this from my clients. And yet when they come down, there's an 80% chance, I'm just pulling a number out of the air, it's certainly more than 50% chance that, you know, when they come down here, they found something else they like better. So is there an amen from the choir, or are you guys seeing the same thing on that? Do you or should we be putting more weight on the people that have physically walked through the home? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
So that's an absolutely.
Absolutely.
Any other chats on that?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. And I can tell you, after selling real estate for like a century, we never used to have to worry about that. And that's going to be a question you ask. In fact, I think it's actually given our sellers decent service when you go back to the multiple offers and say, look, door number one and door number three, they've actually been through the home. Door number two has not. And we can counsel them. And there's a lot of people wanting to get into real estate. And it's okay to say right now, I mean, it doesn't include anybody here. I would say that the level of competence in real estate is being diminished with the number of new people coming in. I'm not saying they have, you know, ill intent. However, there is an expertise that what we do, and new people basically will water that down because they get in because of the herd mentality. They heard it was a great market and they get into it, right? So I think we need to differentiate ourselves, and this is one of the ways that we counsel that our potential sellers. I'm also giving you great ammunition on a listing presentation of walking through the steps. Number one was, as just a reminder, is they can focus on price all they want. My job, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is to help you focus on the one that has a higher probability of closing. And then you can talk about them physically being through the home. So that's number two. Contingencies, you know, it's kind of like very interesting. You know, we all know there's contingencies. We've been dealing with contingencies since the 10 commandments on stone tablets, right? So we want to know how many and what's the length. Now, some things are changing. I have agents that I talk to at different role plays, California, etc. There are some marketplaces out there that do not allow any contingencies. No inspection, no appraisal, no, you know, subject to selling your home. In fact, here are the four major ones that you guys see. And I'm shocked at how many agents out there may still submit an offer because they've got a buyer that has to sell. They're hoping they can submit an offer. Well, I'll buy your house if I can sell my house first. Well, if you're new out there or know someone's new, that's an automatic no, right? However, there's markets out there that aren't allowing any contingency. So I've got some thoughts about that. This is kind of common sense. However, I want you to make some notes because this is great conversation to have in a listing presentation. And it's great conversation to have in a buyer presentation to make them more competitive, right? Now, financing, warning, FHA, VA, we all know about that. And the danger there is because they have higher inspection criteria and down payment criteria. One thing that you don't hear talked about a lot, and I think it would be probably a good script to use with potential buyers or sellers, is this. Cash is great. Cash buyers are great. However, and you can pipe in here if you want to, a financing buyer can be equally as good as a cash buyer if it's structured properly. And I know we kind of like, go cash buyers, yay, and we hold our nose to financing buyers. No. I mean, a financing buyer can be equally as strong. So I want you to get that. For example, I helped my daughter in South Carolina buy a house. And so she's actually going to make the payment. So I just put it in my name and so she can, get up and running the way she wants to and et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted the option to put a mortgage on it. I didn't put a financing contingency in there. And some of the agents up there kind of went wacky on me. It's like, oh, well, you got to have a mortgage contingency. No, I don't. There's no contingency on mortgage. And so understand when you school your buyers, first-time home buyers may not know if they can get a mortgage or not. They've never done it before. However, could you possibly be working with somebody sophisticated, experienced enough? They know their finances. They know how to get a mortgage. They have been around the block. Do you think a high percentage of buyers out there already have a level of confidence they can get a mortgage? Yes. And when you have that level of buyer, I'm just going to ask you, why would you even have a contingency in there for financing? Our contract says it's going to be cash through financing or whatever. And I understand you may need proof of funds. However, in my case, I could have probably done it. It wasn't a very expensive house. I think I only borrowed $125,000. California, that might buy you a mailbox. So, I could show a proof of funds of 125. However, I could have an approval letter guaranteeing the 125. So I'm only saying to you guys, everybody likes cash buyers. However, in some markets, that's going to be less than 50%, maybe 50% of most of the buyers out there. Understand, particularly if you're working with buyers, you can make your buyers as strong as a cash buyer if they're financing. So that's that. Appraisal. We are just beginning to see this come up and it's going to get worse. Why?
I agree.
Why? Because what's happening? We're going in and meeting with our sellers and we're showing them the past sales, right? And then we're using some sort of factor, 1.1, 1.2, 1.5. And they say, no. I want to take the past sale and I want to multiply it by my zip code. And that's what I want to ask for the home. And that's what they're getting. So if you think we've had appraisal problems in the past, they're going to get compounded because there's no way the market's going to keep up with the speed of it. Are we on the same page there?
Yes.
So I think then what I did is, and I really give Sonny the credit for bringing this up in our role play, and Catherine from my team is on here, and so she can pipe in. I think it's been really helpful because we are now at the tip of the iceberg of the appraisal issue right now. I've seen this before, and I want us to dig a little bit deep. We've had actually a couple of requests. We're going to be doing a role play here in a little bit on a listing agent and what they're offering as a co-broke, because what's happening. Be careful. I don't want to be careful what I say here because this is just us, right?
Well,
I would rather have a market with inventory than no inventory. Imagine Survivor. We've seen the show, right? And then Survivor's, is pretty good example is that, they're struggling for food. Well, I tell you what, when food gets, to a minimum, then people's emotion kind of really kicks in. And what will happen in an inventory starved market, agents will start to cannibalize other agents. And one of the ways they're going to attempt to compete is they're going to put downward pressure on fees. Are you guys seeing that?
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's like last year, toilet paper. Toilet paper was just a war in the grocery stores.
We have
Yeah, exactly.
2 questions on the chat. Let me
Sure.
scroll back up. Question about selling a home with a solar lease. And then someone wants you to explain the no contingency on mortgage.
Okay. A solar lease. That sounds like something from the West Coast. I don't know what that, oh, would that be somewhere where you're leasing part of your property to put up solar panels, you guys?
Probably more than likely it's that somebody has put photovoltaic cells on their house, like a solar powered home, instead of having a loan on it, it's being leased so that the solar company still retains ownership of the property, but the homeowner is only paying a monthly dividend or a monthly fee that increases slightly every year over a 20-year term.
Well,
Not specifically for like the common use of utility, but I think it's just for that home.
I'm sorry. I've never run
Lois
into that.
said, the person just said, home has a solar on roof. The buyer needs to take over the lease.
Right. Okay. So would that be like in Florida, we have water softeners we lease, and then basically you disclose that's not an owned water conditioning system. They would take over the lease. In my elementary understanding of that whole concept with solar lease, I think it would be the same thing. Or you had an apartment on your property and there was already a tenant in there. I think it's a lease they assume. So that would just be my blink on that. And if that's not the right answer, then get with me offline or somebody else that can answer that specifically. So I got that one. Go to the second one. What'd you say on the second one there, Sonny?
No contingency on mortgage, please. Explain that one.
Cool. So our contract states, and every state could be different, is that you check it's either financing or cash. Under the cash section, it says, I can get financing. I'm saying it's going to be cash. And first of all, okay, your contract may not say that. Let me back up. If you say cash, that means there's no contingency for financing. However, in the state of Florida, I think the way, if I understand our contract properly, that does not preclude me from getting a loan on the property. It's just not contingent on it. Now, does that make sense to you guys out there in different states? And you guys can comment and maybe help add some color and some definition to what I just said.
So Denny, if I understand you correctly, this is Catherine, by the way, you're saying that if you're going to get a mortgage, if you're already pre-approved, which you should be anyway, and you know it's going to go through, you can put the transaction through or the offer through as a cash purchase and still get a loan on the property?
Yeah, there's no law that says you have to disclose you're getting a loan that I know of. It's just, is it going to be contingent on that? And so you just don't make it a contingency. You can, so that, I mean, that's just like a cash transaction. In fact,
Yeah.
I don't even think you have to disclose you're getting a loan if it's not contingent on a loan. I'm not a lawyer. That's just my understanding of Florida law. Go ahead.
But
Any
Denny,
comments on that?
if you're getting a loan, isn't it contingent on you being able to close the loan and actually obtaining that loan? So it kind of is contingent.
Not if you don't state it as contingent. There's not a contingency on financing. So if you did not get your loan and you could not close, then you would basically be out your deposit. Just like if you had your cash to close, and I've seen this happen before, where one of the couples goes out and buys a Mercedes, a week before closing, and they no longer have the cash.
Yep.
So put it in there if you have any questions, if you want to go a little deeper in that. Who's at a zoo? Somebody's at a zoo. I can hear animals in the background, okay? That might be Monkey Jungle over there, Sebastian. They still have that? All right, so I forget where we were. We're going to get into the role play, mastery level role play. And I was giving Sonny the credit, I think, because we're going to be working on the appraisal issue. And as you know, the formula, we always use question-based, acknowledge, isolate, answer, and close. In other words, get to the center of the Tootsie Roll Pop. So let's go into the first role play here. And then we're going to alternate some of these basically on the listing agent low fee. Oh, and the other one was the request from the crowd, a pocket listing that wants to wait. Sunny, if you can find out who that is, that is in the background, that'd be great. All right, well, we're gonna role play this. Low appraisal buyer. So who would like to be a buyer for me? And I will just walk you through some things that I'm learning role playing this with my team.
I'll do it.
All right, Gonzalo, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And is anybody sitting outside where the bird is chirping? It magnifies like 100 times. It sounds like you're in a zoo. All right, so Gonzalo, now here's my aha, you guys. This is why I love role playing with my team, because I get to like practice. All right, imagine you're the buyer's agent and you've got the contract and there's could be cash or financing. Let's just say it's financing, and the seller was kind enough in your particular case to give you an appraisal contingency. Purchase price was $325,000. If you guys can relate to that. If not, I'll just go $425,000. I know California still doesn't relate to that. The purchase price is $425,000. The appraisal comes into $400,000. Now, just be honest with me just for a second. How many people are kind of like, that's bad news. Oh no, biting fingernail time. I don't want to make the call. Does anybody have those kind of nano thoughts for a moment?
Of course.
So this was a great conversation we had today. Our mindset is everything. So sometimes when you think something's bad, it turns out to be good. I won't tell you the whole story. My coach, my MAPS coach, tells a story about a farmer that bought a horse. And the neighbor said, wow, that wasn't good. He got this great horse, a lot of money. And he said, well, we'll see. Then his son got on the horse and rode the horse and knocked him off and broke his leg. And the neighbor said, well, that's bad news. The farmer said, well, we'll see. Anyway, this goes on and on and on. And there was a happy ending at the end. So everything's a we'll see. So when you make the call, one of the things we worked on today, if you're coming from you're the doc, you're calling and say, look, done the x-ray, I've done the biopsy on your hand. It looks like we're going to have to take your hand off. I mean, if you're coming from that mindset, that state of mind, do you think you're going to put them in a very good position to begin with? So make a note of this. In this particular market, specifically in this particular market, when should the concept of a low appraisal come up?
Beginning.
Before.
Yes, you want to talk about it at the beginning. And so you guys sound like Al, right? What you want to do is frame it in the right position. Now, is a low appraisal a good thing or bad thing?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Could be either, right? Tell me what could be bad about it and tell me what could be good about it.
Well, the good thing is you got a low appraisal. You can tell the seller that you didn't leave any money on the table. The bad side of that is when an appraisal comes in low, the seller is fixated on a certain dollar amount that they've already gotten multiple offers on. So they feel like that is the market value of their house, and you may not be able to move them off of that pillar. So
all right. So you're talk about it from a buyer's perspective now. You've got to Dan deliver. It's a $25,000 off appraisal on the house. Bad or good news for a buyer?
Great news for a buyer.
Okay, well, we got a little less filling tastes great going on here. So go ahead, Dan. Why is that great news for a buyer?
So great news, Mr. Buyer, is that the appraisal came in light on it. And because of the conversation we've had with the seller, they're willing to reduce the sales price. You're buying the house at market value, which is $25,000 less. So you save yourself the initial investment up front, as well as your monthly payment goes down.
Now, let me ask you guys a question. Is he talking fast or is it just playing back fast? Where are you from, Dan?
Walking fast.
Also,
And I
Denny,
disagree.
sellers in this market are not going to drop their price to the appraiser. They're going to go, look, they're not keeping up with the market value.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I want to go back to you, Dan. So, Dan, you're the agent, and you're going to the buyer saying we can use this to go back and renegotiate, right?
It creates another conversation that we can have with the sellers and see if we can't make a win-win situation happen.
Okay. All right. So then you role play with I'll go ahead and be that buyer because I agree with you. I don't disagree. However, let's flesh this out. So, are you saying then? Okay, what if that doesn't work?
Well, Denny, you've got two options. We can either come up with a way to close in the delta on that, or we can walk away from the deal and you can lose your deposit.
Okay. That doesn't sound so good.
Yeah, it creates a tough situation. The balance here is you love the house, right?
Now he's going down the path that I'm interested in. Well, yeah.
Okay. And it's got everything that you and your family were looking for, right?
Yeah.
And when we first put the offer in, you said whatever it took to get this house, you were willing to do, right?
Yeah, honey, I think my wife said that.
Okay. Well, I remember it somewhere. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So it sounds like we've got a deal with the seller now, and he's agreed to sell you the house at $400,000. The appraisal came in at $375,000, which puts us about $25,000 away. We're going to have the potential to talk to the seller and see if that we can come up with some kind of agreement where we can make this a win-win on both sides. How invested are you still in this property?
Bingo. Bingo, right there. Now, a couple things that he did there was extremely good. Number one, he took me back. He got me back into the emotion of the house. And we had the same role play today. In essence, okay, so I'm going to go back and give you a couple little things that was all kind of woven in there that I think it's worth remembering. Number one, he said, well, it's good news. Normally, again, starting out, I'd say, hey, look, remember our conversation that we had that basically market value is going up faster than appraised value. Remember that conversation? All right. So you role play with me, Dan. You're the buyer.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, that's exactly what happens. Let me ask you a question. So if you're standing at the end of the runway, take out your phone and take a picture of a home. Take a picture of the airplane taking off. It may be 100 feet off the ground. Then you decide to count to 10 and take another picture. Is the plane higher or lower?
Much higher.
That's what our market's doing. Now, Dan brought up a good point. I'm just going to step out of role play. Dan brought up a really, really good point that I had never really thought about before. In essence, and this is what he said to me, you are in control of the home right now. Remember how much competition there was going in there to get the offering. You were selected. You are the winner. So, and there's nobody else competing with you right now. Then he asked me basically the question, listen, are you still, if there's a way to make this work, are you still into the home? That's where he was going. That's the essence of the question. You don't want to get into the technical side of how you're going to come up with $20,000 or $25,000 yet. Listen, if there's a way, Dan, to make this work, are you still into the transaction?
I am.
When you have that, now you're having conversations. That's what he said. You go into, now we can have a conversation with a seller. Okay, so here are the things we can do. We can have a conversation with a seller. They might help, they might not. Short of that, Dan, we have to make up, let's assume that they have to make up 20 grand. What options do you have at your disposal? Rather than give them a laundry list of options, why don't you, and they may need some help. What options do you have to come up with maybe $20,000, Dan?
We have some investments we could probably liquidate. We didn't want to, but we may be able to.
Okay. And anything else? I'm isolating.
I'm sure that my wife's family, they said they would help us get the house because they know we really want it. So we might be able to ask them for some help.
Here's the essence of the question. Is this house worth you going through those steps in order to own it?
Yes,
notice I didn't say buy it, in order to own it.
Absolutely.
Here's the other thing, going back to the airplane example. When you think about, you got to go back to the alternative. Would you rather buy, so let's say he's pushing back on me. I don't want to pay. All right, so what would a buyer say pushing back, Dan?
I'm not paying more than market value. It appraised at $375. That's all I'm going to pay.
Okay, so what you're saying is that regardless of what the market value is, you only want to pay appraised value, correct?
Right, because that's what the bank says it's worth.
Okay, I understand. Of course, the banks are telling you what it was worth maybe a month or two ago. Remember, the airplane's going to be higher. So what you're saying then is you want to be looking in and buying in a market that is not going up, correct?
Correct.
So maybe it's stagnant. Like, what a great word, right? Stagnant. Or maybe it's going down. So would you rather buy a house in a downward moving neighborhood?
No.
Well, if you do that, most likely the purchase price will be below the appraisal. Why? because the airplane's coming in for a landing. Would that make you more comfortable?
I mean, if that would mean that I'm buying a house that's losing value by the time I close it.
Well, okay, I'm just going to throw it right back at him. Well, if you don't want to buy a house that's going up in value, what's your alternative?
Buying a house that goes down in value?
Yeah. So would you rather do that?
No, I'd rather have equity.
Do you see? All you have to do is like ask them the questions, because what I want you guys to think about, for every decision and action someone makes, there's the other side of the coin. Just help them see that, because they're not looking at that. I don't want to pay more than appraised value. Okay, what does that mean? We got to go in a neighborhood that's going down or equal. Or get this. I don't want to be in the bidding war. I don't want to buy a house. All right, so somebody else handle this. I know Dan can do it. I don't want to buy a house that's basically multiple offers. I don't want that bidding war. What do you say to me?
Time to look in the dented can bin.
Bing. Well, there you go. I mean, that's a funny way of saying it, right? Dan, how would you handle it? I don't want a bidding war.
Okay, what makes you say that?
Well, I hate that pressure. I don't need that pressure. I'm not going to overpay like some of these knuckleheads.
Well, there's the essence of overpaying is just the perception of it. When you and I first sat down with the family and went over your guys' goals and hopes for the buying process, you remember how I told you how crazy the market was and how aggressive we needed to be up front?
Okay.
What's more important to you, living in the house of your dreams or not competing for it?
See there, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I was wondering, he was starting to like tell a little bit, then he put the question right at the end of it. That's the essence of it. So y'all get that? Cover it up front. And then when the appraisal comes in low for the buyer, say, yep, good news. You know, and here's the other thing I want you to remember. Do they have, if the market is going up, the airplane's going up, have they locked in a price already?
Yes.
What does that mean? Dan said it in one of his scripts a few minutes ago. What are they doing?
They're building equity.
There you go. Write that down. You are building equity because the appraisal's low. A low appraisal, if they have the ability, the only thing that will keep you from then keeping them in the transaction would be emotion. And that last question Dan asked was a bullseye. And believe me, a low appraisal is better than a high appraisal. So, all right, so let's go to the next one. Low appraisal seller. Now, so Dan, you're going to be the buyer's agent. Picking on you today because you've got so much energy. You're going to be the buyer's agent, and you're coming to me because the appraisal comes in $25,000 low. So you've had a conversation with the buyers. I'm the listing agent. And what's your conversation to me?
Hey, Denny, it's Big Dan over at Keller Williams. How are you doing, bud?
Good, Dan. You calling me doesn't sound like good news to me.
Well, if I didn't call you, it'd be even more troubling, wouldn't it?
Sure would.
So have you heard from the bank yet on our appraisal?
I think they would have probably got a hold of you first, right?
Yeah, I'm just making sure they didn't spoil the news for me. The appraisal came in at 375, contracts at 400. Wanted to reach out and see how you and I can put this deal together and work together to come up with a win-win.
Well, I guess your buyer would probably, does your buyer still want the home?
Yeah, we talked to them about that. They're open to some discussions on how we can make this work on both sides.
Do they have the ability to make up the difference in the appraisal?
That's one of the things they're looking into. What is your seller willing to do to keep this deal together?
Well, you know, I'm just letting you in. I like you. I like having transactions with you. You know, we selected your offer. We had 4 other offers. So probably I'll talk to the seller about it. He seemed to like your couple, you know, new baby and all. However, it's like, you know, probably see what else is out there. Kind of like free agency.
Right, exactly. The good thing is he's got options to choose from. You know, how does it look for him if he goes back on the market and he gets a client that's maybe not as willing to overlook some of the issues that came up in the inspection? And really, I just want to make sure we can get everything he's due, as well as, you know, win-win for the buyers.
Well, what's the best your buyers? What do you want me to take back to the seller?
So, you know, they're at the 375 is where the appraisal came in at. And knowing that we came in at the appraised value and the market is moving, so we do have a validation there. You know, the good thing is your seller didn't leave any money on the table.
So let me ask you, what do you think it's, you think it really, I mean, you came in, you wrote out, you're an experienced agent, you wrote the contract at 400. You wouldn't have done that if you didn't think the value was there, right? You
know, Denny, I was just as surprised as you are when that valuation came back in. And when I provided the additional information to the appraisal company, they didn't see our argument as valid. However, I do understand that value is only depended on that one person at that moment in time. So you wouldn't blame the seller if he stood firm at 400? I wouldn't blame him for doing anything that he felt was right for his family. But again, you and I know that once we go back out in the wild, we don't know what to expect. And right now we've got 2 agreeing parties that are willing to work together to make it happen. Just want to kind of see where we can go and what avenues that you and I could come up with to serve to both of our clients to make this a win-win. So you guys give Dan some feedback on how he did that. What'd you like? Maybe you thought things didn't go so well. What'd you like about it?
I like that he had a conversation with them about how they can work together. Both sides working together. That shows how important it is to keep agent relationships really well and not burn bridges.
Yeah, I like that too. Any other comments, you guys? What do you think?
We have a question. Brenda has a question.
Okay. You're going to read it?
Sorry, I was going to type it in the chat and we're getting feedback because we're both in the same place here. So is there really any point to putting a time for them to get back to you on the contract nowadays? Because it just seems like everyone isn't doing that.
So which part, Brenda? On
on the response to the
initial
contract.
Oh, you're talking about the initial offer?
Yes.
Oh, I get it. So I know you guys are doing your best to school. In fact, hang on to that question 1 second. I want to put a bow on Dan. Here's the thing that I liked of what Dan did. Where was his ego?
He didn't have it.
No. You guys, I mean, haven't you met agents out there that want to thump their chest and they know it all? And what I've found that the agents are the most experienced out there are the most gracious and understanding, and realize, and I say this a lot, and I want you to kind of internalize this. I say this to other agents all the time. And let's say Dan and I are, if you want to think about it, opposing attorneys, although it's not that combative. Hey, Dan, listen, buyers and sellers come and go. We're in business together for a long time. That was his attitude. He approached me. It was like Catherine said, an attitude of like, what can we do to work together? I even attempted to squeeze some crumbs out of him, right? He didn't, he said, well, I don't, he was very coy about it. He's experienced. A lot of agents out there would have spelled the beans. Well, they're going to go forward with it. And we're just trying to get some money back, right? You've seen agents do that. That won't be you. Then I wanted to find out, and I asked him and I don't know how his brain works very fast. I asked him if he thought that a $400,000 was not right. Now that was Dan, you can tell me what went through your mind when you said that, because you could have lied, or maybe you really didn't think that. However, do you think that when you basically, well, that's just one person's opinion on it, and I was surprised too. Do you think that kind of brought us closer together, of maybe wanting to work together versus it put us at odds? Yeah, because if I were to come at the state, like you said, the pride and the ego in there, if I were to come back and say, well, honestly, Denny, I thought 400 was a little over top and we were just trying to see if your seller would take the offer, then you know that I'm not invested and I'm playing you. Or if I come from the other side and say, well, yeah, I thought 400 was dead set on it and this appraiser is just ridiculous, then I am setting a hard line in the sand that the seller can anchor to, saying that the value is 400, even the other agent thinks so. So why would I come off my number? So I came from the middle of that. It was a great question, because it set me back on my heels. But one, you gotta protect your reputation of being forthright and trustworthy, saying, you know what, I was just as surprised as you are.
And
I thought you handled it very strategically, and I would have the spirit of cooperation, meaning, we don't control what the seller does. However, I would be happy to put the deal together. So that was really, really well done. Brenda, going back to your question, case in point, is this what you mean? Somebody makes an offer on, it's a new listing. They make an offer on it like at 5 o'clock on Saturday evening. They want an answer by 9 o'clock Sunday morning because they want to squeeze the seller out of opportunity. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
No, they don't. It doesn't mean anything.
no, not at all.
In fact, it's a little bit rude.
Very.
And so,
What it does do is it offers the buyer the opportunity to get out of the contract is all it does.
buyer can get out anyway. Buyer can rescind the offer anytime prior to acceptance communication back to the from the seller. So they can say, email the other agent and say, hey, look, my buyer's out. So they have that right. That's why the time frames on contracts, particularly when you give a counter offer, or you got to respond within 12 hours or 48 hours or whatever. I think when I saw that happen, this is what went through my mind. And I understand we're attempting to help our buyer get ahead. However, we happen to be on the listing side. And when I saw that contract come in, when it was basically a brand new listing, they wanted the seller to decide within 12 hours on the market. I think they're either, and it may not have been the agent driving the bus. However, it didn't come off well with me. Because number one, that's a first grade trick to get somebody to get a seller to pressure. I mean, can you pressure a seller into doing anything right now? No. So no, Brenda, the time frame doesn't mean that much. So low appraisal seller. This is my conversation with the seller. I'm going to go back. So Brenda, I'll just go to you. You're the seller. Hey, listen. As you know, we talked about this before. The appraisal came in at 375. We're a contract under at 400. And our options are, I already talked to Dan, the other agent, and his buyers would like to be able to work something out. We can do that. We can say no and put it back on the market. And again, there's some risk there, maybe some benefit. And we can just, come down 25,000. So what would you like to do?
Did they make an offer as to what they wanted to do?
Oh, I think that's where I cut it off. I asked him that question. He didn't answer it. A little slippery guy, him. So they would like to be able to maybe work something out. So are you in the mood to maybe work something out on that?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe they work it out. And again, here's where a great agent has to be careful that they don't get their ego involved. Case in point, this happened this week. Seller in my marketplace, not even my listing, he's just a friend of mine. He used a buddy from the gym to help him with this offer, right? And so he's calling me asking for advice, which is what he's doing. So low appraisal, I'll make up numbers. It appraised at 340. He listed it at 480. He's got an 340. No, he listed it at 390. He's got an offer at 450. Cash, no. He had 4 offers. That's the best one. No contingencies at all. Now he's $100,000 plus over the appraised value, $50,000 over the asking price. No contingency, no appraisal, inspection, blah, blah, blah. He wanted to counter. Well, he wanted to go with the 3 offers, highest and best, which is interesting. In this particular case, the agent gave them, well, I'm not the agent, remember, told the seller, hey, look, you can't give highest and best. You've already got a best offer. Bad advice right there. That's not true. However, I think he decided to counter the highest offer. What do you think the buyer did? Now, this was a buyer that's lost out on several houses. He's gone in very aggressive on asking price, no contingencies. What do you think the buyer did? What's the risk, guys?
He walked away.
Gotta walk.
Walk away.
He walked away. Because in this market, do you feel like the buyers are like punching bags? Do buyers feel like you're punching bags?
Mm-hmm.
At some point in time, there's always a risk. And this is what Dan was attempting to remind me. And there's a lot of agents that would need to be reminded. And you might have to have a conversation with the seller. Hey, listen, we've already been through the inspection. He's pointing out, hey, listen, there's some risk here of going back on the market. Write this down. As crazy as this market is, there's no such thing as a bulletproof seller.
Mm.
In a normal market where you might have multiple offers, right? I have seen it happen where you go highest and best. Maybe you only have 2 offers. Boom, you lose them both, right? And the seller ends up selling for less because you don't have that multiple offer situation. Every action has the other side of the coin. Make sure when you have that conversation, you share that with them. So that's having the conversation with the seller. Make sure, like a doctor, you take that medicine or you take that course of action. There's a potential negative side effect. So quickly, going into what somebody brought up here, they would like to role play. Somebody's dealing with a potential seller. The seller's going to give them a pocket listing. And so, Catherine, you probably can role play this because you've been talking to the seller.
Yep.
And so I'll just take it up, and then I'll let you guys pick up too. Because I got my replacement. If I ever like keel over or something, or I'm in intensive care, Dan, just take over for me. Okay. So.
Got it.
So you're the seller. So how long do you want to wait, Brenda? I'm sorry, Catherine. Catherine, how long do you want to wait, Catherine?
I'd like to wait 45 days.
Awesome. Other than waiting 45 days, is there any other reason why you wouldn't want to expose it to the market now?
Well, no, I just think I'd like to wait 45 days and see if, without putting it out into MLS, and see if we can get a deal that way. It's a hot market. Can't you just have one of your agents in your office sell it?
Well, let me ask you. So what you're saying is, are you willing to give me the listing myself as a pocket listing, and not as long as it's not on MLS?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, now you can't answer this. We'll explore this. Does anybody already see that as a win?
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, that might be a win with an asterisk and a plus.
Because you get the buy side easily.
Yes, and you don't even violate MLS rules because of coming soon, right?
Right.
In fact, this is the script I would use. Catherine, how do I clone you? So why would you, let me ask you, and then we'll add something to this. Why would you want them to?
I think because I'm not sure of how I could actually, as a pocket listing, how to actually market it to people.
I'll tell you what you do.
And so I'm puzzled.
It's easy. Go get a 3x5 index card and a popsicle stick and write for sale, put it in the yard.
Boom.
You can put a for sale sign in a yard on a pocket listing?
Well, if the seller says so, why can't you?
I didn't know that.
I don't know if that violates MLS rules. Somebody smarter than me can answer that. However, let's just go through, let's just change the role play a little bit, because that would be a dream call for a lot of agents on this call.
Okay.
Let's say you're a seller that wants to wait 45 days before I don't even get the listing. Maybe you want to give me a pocket listing in 45 days, or you'll list within 45 days. Let's take that, because I want you now to think about, we're going to follow the formula, acknowledge, isolate. That's why I said, other than waiting 45 days, any other reason why you wouldn't, put it on the market now? It's kind of a stupid question. However, I wanted to find out what else they have to say. And she said, no. Okay. All right, so let me ask you, Catherine, what has to happen in order for you to, there's something in your mind that has to happen. Either an event has to happen, or there's a date on the calendar that has to happen. What's driving the decision of waiting 45 days?
I just think that we don't have to put it, I don't have a definite reason. Now, I've had this conversation with the seller, so they can't even give me a reason as to why they would wait 45 days.
You can't step out of roll, just roll with it.
Okay. You know, I don't really have a reason. I just think that just based on the market, we don't have to do this. We do not have to put it out on the open market and have thousands of people in the house and all the commotion. I just want to keep it quiet and sell it.
Okay, so I want you to change the position a little bit. I want you to be a seller that does, you're willing to list in 45 days.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So what has to happen in 45 days and for you to list with me?
In 45 days, well, if you can't sell it in 45 days, I'll sign a contract right now that says if it's not sold in 45 days, we can put it on the market. We'll put it in MLS.
Okay. So I'm not really communicating well, I guess. Forgive
I'm
me for
sorry.
that. That's okay. I want you to be somebody who doesn't want to put their house on the market for 45 days. Forget the pocket listing thing.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Got it. No, you know what? I want to wait the 45 days. You know, there's a lot of, there's spring break going on right now. And I would just like to wait. All the seasonal people are here. I'd like them to go home and then we'll put it on the market after that.
Other than that, other than what you just said, I'm going to speed it up. Any other reason why?
No.
All right. So am I hearing you right? So basically right now is a busy time of year, right?
There's a lot of seasonal people around and I don't think seasonal people are really interested in purchasing at this point.
Well, if there's more people here, would you not think that there's more potential buyers here in season versus out of season?
My home's worth almost $2 million. I don't think there's people here right now that would be willing to pay that.
Would you be open to, if I could show you information to the contrary, would you look at it?
If you could show me something contrary.
So do you think that only the $2 million buyer is not here or anything $2 million and up is not here in the season?
I think it's the 2 million and up that are not here at this time.
What's interesting, because I just did a presentation on the market and she's in Naples. So I'm attempting now, I'm attempting to demonstrate to you.
This is in Fort Myers, by the way.
It's okay. I mean, I'll just talk about Southwest Florida. Is that, would it surprise you to know that the ultra luxury market, you got the million and up and et cetera, is up over 100% right now since COVID?
Yes, that would surprise me.
And do you know what's driving that market?
No, because I didn't know it was up that high.
Have you heard about, or can you imagine people that are like in New York and Boston and Chicago and a lot of our feeder markets, they're in states that are closed down and there's article after article about them leaving to open states like Florida. Can you see that happening?
Yes, I can see that happening.
And I have the numbers here I can show you, and I do have the numbers that the luxury market is way up right now, strictly because these people in cold markets want to get out while they can. So my question is, assuming you take that information as fact, would you rather expose your home to the market when there's a frenzy of buyers looking, or wait for it to slow down?
It would be better when there's more people.
See, there's a lot of ways to handle that. What I wanted to demonstrate with you, and notice I didn't give her a lot of facts, whatever. I was just, there's more than one way to do that. It was a series of questions, but what I'm modeling here is whatever decision they want. I want to wait for 45 days. Why do you want to wait? Well, the seasonal buyer's not here. I mean, the buyer's not here for my house. Now, isn't it better to hear that from her versus us say, well, this is the busy time of year, blah, 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 is what she gave us more information in how to tackle that. There's always another card to lay regardless. And what is the card? Every opportunity you have for a buyer or a seller to wait, the other side of the coin, this is always there. What is it?
Shift.
Yep. Say it again.
A shift.
The market conditions can change.
Anytime.
And that's the card that you have to be able to practice to articulate without telling. So Dan, take over on for like a couple minutes, maybe 2 minutes. Use that on Catherine on a potential shift and question based.
Kathy, I hear you. How would you feel in 45 days we go to market and it's actually gone down?
I'd be furious.
Tell me more.
You know, I want to sell this property so that I can buy a property in Royal Harbor. I want to do a 1031 exchange to buy a property in Royal Harbor.
Okay. Have you?
And if it goes down, I can't do that.
Okay. So it's in your best interest to sell it when the market's at its peak, right?
Yes.
Okay. So have you selected the house in Royal Harbor yet?
No, we've been looking. Have not found the house yet.
Right.
We want to pay, we have to do a 1031 exchange, so I can't really do anything until we sell the house.
Right. And I feel you're there, and we want to make sure we get you set up for that. So it sounds like to me that selling this house for the money that we think it's worth today, based on the market of today, would allow you to reach that goal of buying in Harbor, right?
Yes, it would.
And if we were to, possibly list in a month and a half and the market's dipped, that would no longer be feasible, right?
No, it would put a real burden on us and we'd have to sell more of our properties in order to do that. And I'd rather keep our income properties.
Okay. It makes sense to keep the cash assets there. So how can we avoid the risk?
By listing it right away.
Okay. Let's get this signed and I'll do that for you.
All right, hang on. I like where you're talking.
I see that.
Here's just a wild question. Just stay with that. How can we do that? That was a perfect question. We got a list right away. Okay. Other than that, how can we do it?
Okay. So other than selling it right away, how can we do it?
It's the best way to do it is just to sell it right away.
See, that's what I wanted her to get to. I wasn't isolating. I was attempting. I wanted her to say, is there any other option than to sell it now? Because there isn't.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted her to say it. I wanted her to crawl on glass. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Nice job, Dan.
Okay.
All right. So what are your questions? What are your observations? What are your ahas today? This was a great conversation. I had somebody carrying some of the load. I feel I can go another hour now.
I feel more secure in more conversations that I can have with my seller.
Good. Who else? You guys have been quiet. Rick, you've been so quiet today, man. Come on. You could be leading this class.
The low appraisal, that was eye-opening for me. Being able to walk through that. So the fact that we could point out that they're walking into equity, giving
awesome.
Even the either or. So yeah, that was really good. I had not even gone that far before, so that was great.
Anything else to close it out, you guys? James?
I had
yeah.
The way I actually am going through that right now with I have a cell that's going through appraisals today actually, and so we expect it to come through low. So you guys going over that and how he was able to like take himself out of it and sandwich his objection with like just gratefulness and let's work together, but he would also not anchor himself to your seller. It was just like he really opened it up. That was amazing. He really helped me out a lot.
Thank you. And I've learned a lot in the last couple of days dealing with this because, like I said, I say this all the time, the role play, it helps you see things you didn't see before. It's kind of like, and I never was like a coach, like a football coach. They watch game film. You just learn stuff. So I've learned here recently that, change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. A low appraisal does have some silver lining around it. because the alternative is homes are falling in value, right? That's like a buyer. I don't want to buy in this market. What do you mean? Well, the houses are going up. Okay, well, you want to wait till the houses are going down?
That was a good turnaround. I like that. That was a big note I took away.
Denny, I want to say something.
Sure.
I love that you always, so in Farsi, we say, put the ball in your partner or enemy or friend or whoever you have any relationship, put the ball in their field. Like if you imagine it's a soccer field, they say if the ball is in their field, they're going to play with it. So they're going to do action no matter what. So when you put the ball in the buyer's situation and asking them questions, they're going to come up with the answers. So you let them come up with the idea that you're looking for themselves. And I love
Thanks,
that.
Pharrell. Thank you. One of the things I said in one of the role plays, I don't know if I said it last week, but I think it was a really good quotable. This could be on a vanity plate on your car. When you ask a great question, and we heard some today from you guys, when you ask a great question, what they're doing is when you can get them to pause long enough to think, they're listening to their inner voice. Their inner voice is 100 times more powerful than your voice. And that can only happen, but two things happen. Number one, you ask great questions. Number two, you shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see them thinking, slow down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we have today. You guys are awesome. In the words of Hill Street Blues, be careful out there. Love you, mean it. Knuckle bump. See ya.
Thank you.